everyone. Welcome to the first episode of Global Women Peace podcast. I'm Kristen Singharat, a current MPH Global Health student at George Washington University. Today marks the first launch of the podcast episode that I created as a channel for my practicum deliverable for the foundation to utilize as a platform for education, advocacy, and storytelling. I'm here with Ms. Angela Peabody, the CEO of Global Women Peace Foundation, and we will be having meaningful conversations about her background and how Global Women Peace became what it is today. Ms. Angela, could you please start by sharing a little about yourself and the work that you do to combat FGMC nationally and globally?
Well, thanks, Kristen, for inviting me and doing this as part of your practicum project. I'm the executive director of and founder of Global Women Peace Foundation. And my background is, well, first of all, I'll go back. I was born in Liberia, West Africa. I grew up there. It's a small West African nation. And my background is actually in broadcast journalism. But even though it's broadcasting, but it's still I still have experience in print journalism. And I began my career in Liberia at the Liberian Broadcasting Corporation. When I was hired, I like to tell the story. I was the fourth woman to get a broadcasting job in that country. It was a male-dominated area, and I didn't even start broadcasting on the air. Instead, they placed me in the sales department, and I was logging commercials for the first 3 months of my career. And it was really boring, but I made the best of it. And then I got my big break to get on the air when the regular newscaster who gave the headlines in the evening was sick and couldn't come in, and they had nobody available at the time. And they came in to the sales department to get me and tell me that I had to go on the air. It was just all of a sudden, I didn't have much time to prepare for my television debut, and but everything went well. And after that, it was goodbye sales department and hello television news. And that's how my career got started in broadcasting. Later on, I went ahead and produced my own television shows. My first show was The Marriage Came, which was a big hit. And then my second show was equally a hit. It was called Matchmaker. And my third TV show was Feminine Touch. And it was probably an indication or forecast of my softness with women's issues, and that women's issues were going to be in my future, which I didn't know at the time. But that's my background, and that's how I got started in my career.
Wow, that's so amazing that you've come from a place so far from the United States, and your journey started out as broadcasting. So how did that transition you and spark your interest in female genital mutilation?
Well, as a little girl in Liberia, I was always curious about these topless girls that walked around with white chalk and beads all over their bodies. And each time I would ask my mother, who are those girls and why are they dressed like that? She would just say, oh, they just came from the Grigger bush. Well, at that age, I didn't know what the Grigger bush was. I was in my 8-year-old mind at the time, I wondered why I too couldn't go to the Grigger bush, my sisters and I. And I remember a girl with whom I played. She went to the Grigger bush for 2 years, And when she came back, she was not the same. She was withdrawn, didn't want to play anymore. And I just internalized the questions and curiosity until many years later, as an adult. I wanted to know why she was withdrawn. I took it personally and thought she didn't like me anymore and didn't want to play with me anymore. So it wasn't until I came to the United States many years later, when I read Waris Diary's book titled Desert Flower, and it all came back to me. The topless girls with chalk bodies and my childhood playmate, the Gregor bush. I connected all the dots and discovered that what the Western world was calling female genital mutilation, which I had not heard of, I hadn't heard that terminology, was the same as what they called in Liberia female circumcision. And I concluded that the Gregor bush, the topless chalk bodies of girls, FGM, female circumcision were all connected. After I read Desert Flower, my curiosity was really steered in another direction. I wanted to know more about this FGM thing, that, as they were calling it in the Western world. It appeared to be in Somalia, Kenya, Liberia, Sierra Leone, Nigeria, the Gambia, and so many other countries in Africa. Little did I know that it was in even more countries. They were on almost all continents, in the world. And I wondered if it was in, you know, in Europe, places like the United States and Europe. I needed answers to my questions. So I set out to discover more, and I did research. I did extensive research on the topic, and studied the history and the origin, finding out that according to history, they said it originated in Egypt, all over 5,000 years before. And I wanted to know the whys and the hows. Why were they doing this to girls? So it was more my curiosity really that got me started in this work.
That's really amazing how your environment really impacted the way that you have operated since, and how Desert Flower really made an everlasting impact on you and really made you curious and pretty much ignited a fire in you wanting to learn more. Do you think that led you to founding what Global Women Peace?
Yes, then I became, this is another story I like to tell. I became so obsessed with what I was discovering, and I couldn't get enough of it. It was all I could talk about at the dinner table, to my friends, to family members, to my sons, co-workers. I kept talking about it, and I even conducted a brief survey, um, on my commute to work every day. I live in Virginia. I had to commute to Washington D.C. every day, via the metro, and so I would sit next to a total stranger every morning, in the metro, and I would ask whether it was male or female. Excuse me, but have you ever heard of something called female genital mutilation? And they it was no the interesting part was nobody ever shooed me away. Nobody ever said, I don't want to talk about it, please leave me alone. It was either, the response was either, yes, but it happens over in Africa, right? And I would say, no, guess what, it happens here as well. and then that would start a conversation. Or the response was, no, I haven't heard of it. What is it? And that too would start a conversation. And I realized that at the end of each day of my commute, I had taught at least two people um, going and coming about FGM. And that's how I conducted my little private survey. And I realized how many people didn't know about it or didn't know enough about it. Um, and when I told my sons about my little project I had been doing on my own, they urged me to start my own organization. I didn't want to do that. I was a writer. I was a journalist. I wanted to write books. I had just written my first novel. I was working on my second novel. I didn't really have interest in starting an organization, a nonprofit organization, because I had never worked in the nonprofit world. I didn't, I had never, I didn't know anything about starting a nonprofit organization, but their words kept resonating to me every time I encountered FGM in some way, whether it was through research or reading or a woman, a survivor, when I met my very first survivor. It all started coming back to me, and this nagging thing was in my mind. Maybe you would do better if you would do more for these women to help them if you started your own organization, because that's what my sons had told me. You will do better if you would do more work with them if you started your own organization. And so Global Woman Peace Foundation was born.
Oh, that is so sweet that you've always had support and people interested in hearing what you said. I think probably your background in journalism and broadcasting draws people into your conversation. So, how does a woman from Liberia in West Africa and has a career in broadcasting corporation pivot and start a nonprofit foundation?
Well, I really do believe in destiny. I really do. And if I didn't before, I do now. Even though I had rejected my son's suggestions, and like I said, it kept nagging me. So I went ahead and started looking into starting the organization. Finding the name to call it and all of that. So my obsession just grew and developed into a passion that I had to do it, and I just took the plunge and I started it. I did, of course, I did research. I love to do research. I did research and did some investigation. I have a cousin who she's now the vice president of Global Women Peace Foundation, and she had experience working in with nonprofit organizations. So I turned to her for advice, and then my husband's nephew, who is an attorney, agreed to assist us with the legal paperwork, which was huge. It was a lot of paperwork, especially with the application to the IRS to apply for your 501c3 status. It's like a booklet, and I don't think anybody without legal background could really complete that paperwork and get everything perfect for the IRS to approve. So I was grateful that my nephew was able to help us with that. Um, and then he said, well, you're a writer, so you should write your own bylaws because you know what you want for this organization to do. I cannot write it. So he gave me a sample of bylaws of how to write bylaws, and I actually wrote the first bylaws for the organization, because you have to follow the IRS. Even though for profit, you still have to pay taxes. But for the IRS, with nonprofit, they are giving you an exempt from paying taxes, but you have to do everything in accordance with the IRS laws. So Global Woman Peace Foundation was established, um, and that's how the organizations got started.
That's very super spectacular that all those years of research and your obsession grew into this passion, and having your whole family in your corner to help you launch essentially your second career. Everything kind of fell in place. Do you think it was easy to get it started with everybody's help and how much knowledge you already knew?
I don't think it was. I wouldn't say it was easy. I don't want anyone to think that it's really easy. Just like anything else that's worth doing, I think if it's worth doing, it's not going to be very easy. But like I said, I was fortunate to have my cousin, my nephew-in-law, with his legal advice. My older son had studied finance and accounting. And so, with his expertise, I was really fortunate and blessed to have him. Still am, because he plays a major role in the finance part of the organization. I also focused on partnerships with like-minded organizations for moral support, because I found that I discovered that, listen, one individual cannot do this work, this nonprofit work. One organization cannot do this work successfully. You need to have partnerships. You need to partner with others. So even in 2014, while planning our very first walk to NFGM, my son and I literally pounded the pavement. We went calling on like-minded organizations in Washington, D.C., from door to door, introducing the organization and what we were planning to do, and asking for them to partner with us. So what it was really, it's like an individual builds his or her resume to be attractive to jobs. Well, it's the same thing when you're building a nonprofit organization. You want to build the resume of your organization. You want to build that profile so that it can attract other like-minded organizations for them to partner with you and support you in your endeavors. So no, I wouldn't say it's easy, but it entails a lot of details that you have to be attentive to.
Oh yeah, definitely. So all this hard work, all this time, all this sweat, all the things that took to create your foundation, what is the overall mission at the end of the day, or years from now? What do you hope that this organization means to the world?
Well, the mission of the organization, and I remember vividly the board meeting in which my very first board of directors, when we decided, well, we need a mission, we need to put a mission together, and people were throwing out different ideas and different words, and we just came up with the mission should be to empower women and girls through education. to help eradicate gender-based violence, especially female genital mutilation and cutting, because um, the reason why we put emphasis on FGMC is because um, we realized that when it came to gender-based violence, to violence against women and girls or individuals, um, it, every other area of gender-based violence had been tapped into in the United States, except for female genital mutilation. It was totally untapped. I determined that from my little survey that I did before in the metro, and just from talking to people, even members of my family, my siblings, they knew very little about FGM because my family had not been had didn't practice it in Liberia. So there was very little known about it. And I said, if we're going to tackle gender-based violence to get it eradicated, then let's focus on one area, one specific area. And that's how we decided on FGM. So that's the mission of our organization.
No, your mission is super powerful. And I've only been with the organization for a short amount of time, but I feel the power and I feel everybody's passion for it. And it's super awesome that you have really led a way and trailblazed for helping and advocating for FGMC. So, all that said and done, what inspired you to become the executive director?
Well, I didn't solicit it. I guess the board of directors just assumed that I should chair them since I had been the one to establish the organization. I'm glad that they entrusted me and still entrust me to run the organization. I really strive to do um, the best job that I can with it. I hope I am. I guess because I always think about what my nephew advised me. The lawyer, he said, "Be careful who you put on your board." I started with one board, and then um, most of them left, dropped off, and for individual reasons. And then I started the board of advisors so that there were a couple of them on the board, on the original board, who didn't want to, they wanted to stay with the organization. But since we were reorganizing the actual board of directors and their schedule was not going to fit into being a board member, but they still wanted to have a hand in working with the organization. So that's what caused me to start the board of advisors, because I said, the board of advisors don't have much to do except for give advice when needed to the board. But the board of directors, they actually do the work. And so we reorganized the board of directors, and this board that is seated right now has been with us for for several years, for most of the organization's life. And I feel so good about it because that means we are doing something right. And they are pleased with what I'm doing as the executive director, and I'm pleased with what they are doing. So we have a good relationship with the board of directors.
Wow, how incredible. You've really overseen and meticulously picked out every single detail of your organization, from the mission statement to the board of directors to the people a part of it to the organizations you decide to partner with. You really put all of your heart into this organization, and it's so amazing.
Thank
So,
you.
of course, yes. Um, all so this is your second career that took a big turn from broadcasting. What keeps you motivated to keep going and to keep putting your work and your passion and your heart into this?
Wow, whenever I'm interviewed and I'm asked this question, what motivates me or what inspires me, it's easy to answer. It's just when I see how a survivor is so elated or so happy because of the least little thing, like, well, I wouldn't call it least, but she got approved for her asylum because it's one of the services that we offer, to assist them with getting their asylum, to remain in this country because they are so afraid to go back to their countries of origin, or how just the appreciation they show because they got their clitoral restorative surgery, or when women refer to me as their mother. I received a phone call this past weekend, and she said, "Oh, mommy, hi, mommy," and she was actually calling me mommy with so much love. I could feel the love when she said mommy. My sons that I gave birth to called me mommy and mom, but this lady was calling me mommy. She's never met me before in person, but she was calling me that, and so it's just when they call, some of them will call and say, please pray with me or please pray for me. And they want a word of encouragement, or they call me to tell me, to share with me what problems they are having at that time, and they need help, or they just need, some of them call and say, I just needed to hear your voice. And after a couple of them had said that, I asked once, I said, and I asked all of them individually, what about this old voice you want to hear? What makes the difference? And they all gave me the same answer. They said, and separately, they said, because you listen to us. You take time to listen and then you give advice. Um, and that was just that is motivation in itself. You want to hear my voice because I listen. And I didn't even realize that I was doing that, and how important it was to them until they told me. So they motivate me, they teach me, and I'm there for them.
Wow, that is so heartfelt. I can agree with them. I believe you are such an active listener and you have genuine relationships with people, and you are just a safe space for people to come to. And wow, that it's so genuine, and I love that you continue to do this, not for yourself, not to put like for a performance and not to make yourself feel good, but you're genuinely trying to make the world a better place for women, and that's so awesome.
Thank you.
So for all, of course, Miss Angela, you're just so wonderful, and I'm you're not getting enough thanks for the hard work that you do, because you have gone through so much and you have done so much. Founding a being a founder of a foundation is so hard, and you still put 110% in it.
Thank you.
So, with all the things you've done, what have you accomplished? Tell us.
Wow. Do we have enough time? No, I'm just kidding. Um, that is not an easy question for me to
Loaded
answer,
question for sure.
but as Angela Peabody, an individual, my accomplishments are really being a mother of two sons, um, grandmother of 6 grandchildren, and now I have one great grandson. And being a homeowner, that's the American dream. I was told when I first came to this country, being a homeowner. So I've been a homeowner now for more than a quarter of a century. Being a healthy woman in her 70s, who can still who's very, very still independent, and I take pride in my health, in keeping good health. I've been a vegetarian for over 40 years now. So as a writer, my accomplishments are authoring 2 published novels, a children's book, a number of published articles, and co-authoring a biography of a colleague of mine, as a broadcast journalist, being a television newscaster, a television host of 3 shows, and a radio newscaster, as a humanitarian, the executive director of Global Women Peace Foundation, the mother of many FGM survivors in our support group, a speaker, a trainer, and so on. I could go on and on, but being the mother of so many FGM survivors in our support group is really an accomplishment. Like I mentioned earlier, that these women look up to me as their mother, and I wear that as a badge of honor. I really do.
So that's very special that you hold being a mother at its highest. I think that a lot of women put being a mother on the back burner. So, when you're entering these fields that are male dominated, you kind of just want to gel into what the environment is. And, you most women need to be abrasive and they need to be the boss and they need to kind of, fit the personality of a man. But what people don't realize is that being a woman and being able to be a mother is so special in its own. And I can really see that you have used your nurturing nature in all aspects of your life, and you've really flourished from that.
Thank
So,
you.
oh, you're welcome. And from all that you have accomplished, such a short list, is there any more that you hope to accomplish?
Um, yes. One of the things on my wish list is to see billboards on highways that say "Let's end FGMC." I've had that dream now for many years, and unfortunately, my organization isn't financially equipped enough to put up those billboards, because I would like to see them throughout the country on highways. And if I could ever find someone with enough resources to fund that project, that would be great. I remember driving on the highway coming from Richmond, Virginia, which is in the south of the state, driving up north, and and I saw a big billboard that said, end human trafficking or sex trafficking. And I said, now trafficking has a billboard. Domestic violence has a billboard. Child abuse and all of these other things, sexual assault, they all have billboards, but you will never see a billboard that says, let's end FGM. And so that is definitely at the top of my wish list. Another thing that's on my wish list is for GWPF to have a fully paid staff. Especially to have the capacity where we can hire survivors from our support group to give them an opportunity. Perhaps someday one of them will want to start her own organization. I believe in that motto about reaching back. When you get to the top of the ladder, reach back and help another person up. And so that's what I would like to see happen in my organization, where I can reach back and help up another woman who wants to follow in my footsteps, or who wants to exceed what I have accomplished.
Yeah. So to our listeners, if this mission, if this passion has aligned with you, or you're looking to be a part of ending FGMC, please get connected with us and Miss Angela to make this dream come true. She's put a lot of time and effort into building this, and we would love to have more people join this foundation and just volunteer your time, not necessarily money, but resources, to make this dream come true. So, Miss Angela, your last question is, what do you hope to leave behind one day as the executive director?
And don't think that I haven't thought about this before. I certainly think about it a lot now that I'm in my 70s, and the older you get, you think about um, every funeral I go to, I attend, of a colleague or of a loved one. I think about my own mortality, but I would like to leave a reliable staff that is capable of taking over the reins, running and improving what I started. I don't want to see Global Women Peace Foundation go to nothing after I'm no longer here. I want to see it. It's my wish to see it continue and to continue to improve. I really pray and hope that I can live long enough to see that happen, and to know that Global Women Peace Foundation will always continue the work toward ending FGMC. I I hope that I live long enough to see um, the world eradicated from FGMC, but I'm not going to be that optimistic. It's just a nice wish that I'm hoping for, but at least I would like to see GWPF continue the work toward ending FGM.
Wow, Miss Angela, thank you so much for starting off as the first interviewer for for the Foundation's podcast. It was so wonderful learning about your organization's work and how community-based interventions are making a real difference in the fight against FGMC. Your insights into local engagement, education, and advocacy are truly inspiring. Thank you again for sharing your expertise and for the incredible work you and your team are doing to protect women and girls worldwide. We'll have links to resources and material at www.gwpfnd.org. and for more information on how to support the efforts to end FGMC. If you enjoyed this episode, if so, please do two things. Subscribe to the podcast channel so you never miss an episode, and please share with your friends and family. Until next time.